Hi guys, what's up? Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in this video we're going to be going over some math. It's actually sine, cos, and tan, and some of you may be familiar with this, but if you are not, then this is a perfect lesson for you. Before we go on, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, guys. So let's move. So what is trigonometry? Well, trigonometry is just a branch of mathematics that studies relationships between side lengths and angles of triangles. So here is the hypotenuse, and the longest side is always going to be the hypotenuse. And we can see a 90 degrees angle here, okay? Now, we can see an adjacent and an opposite, but what's the difference between these two? Well, here. So if you consider this the angle, if you consider this an angle, then this would be the adjacent to this angle because it's touching this angle, so it would be the adjacent. And this would be the opposite because it's not even touching the angle in any way. And this would be the hypotenuse because the hypotenuse is always the longest side of the triangle. So what are cos, tan, and sine? Well, sine, cos, and tan are basically just operations that you use when you need to find out things related to a triangle. They're also called sine, cosine, and tangent, so don't get mixed up. Now, we need to memorize formulas of these in some way because if we don't, then how are they going to be helpful? So here's a little trick to memorize sine, tan, and cos. Socato. Socato, they just basically stand for their formulas. So means that sine is equal to opposite by hypotenuse. Ca means that cos is equal to adjacent by hypotenuse. And to means that tan is equal to opposite by adjacent. So I'll keep this slide up for a little bit if you guys want to jot down any notes. Alright, moving right along. So sine. Like we said in the previous slide, sine is equal to the opposite over hypotenuse, okay? The opposite is going to be the angle that you're conducting over. Like, let's just draw a quick triangle. And this, pretend that that's 90 degrees. So this would be your h, or hypotenuse, okay? And if we were trying to find the sine of this angle, then this would be your opposite and this would be your adjacent, okay? If we were trying to find this angle. So let's do an example for sine. So we can see that A, or this angle, is equal to 90 because it's a right angle. And B is equal to 60, so C is obviously going to have to be 30 because there's a total of 180 degrees in a triangle. So C is going to be 30. And this is the adjacent, opposite, and hypotenuse, okay? So we want to find sine C. Let's pretend we're finding sine C. Well, the formula was opposite by hypotenuse, right? So the opposite is 3 and the hypotenuse is 5. I'm not going to simplify that into a decimal, but so sine C is going to go equal to 3 over 5. Let's see. Yep, we were correct. Now cos. The cosine of the angle is equal to the length of adjacent over the length of hypotenuse, also called cosine. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So again, here's a triangle, here's a right angle. Always going to be hypotenuse, and if we were trying to find the cosine of this angle, then this would be our adjacent and this would be our opposite. Okay? Let's try one. So in the previous slide, we said that cos is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, we're trying to find cos of C. So this is the angle that we're trying to find, okay? And same thing, like last time. A is equal to 90, B is equal to 60, and C is equal to 30. Those are the angles. So now we want to find cos C. Well, what's the adjacent? Adjacent is going to be 4. And the hypotenuse is 5. So let's see if we're correct. Oops, I guess it's in the way, so let me just do that. Okay, yes, we were correct. Cos C is equal to 4 over 5, adjacent over hypotenuse, or 0.8. Now tan. The length of the opposite over the length of the adjacent side. Tan is also called tangent. So let's draw a triangle again. And this is going to be a right angle, hypotenuse. So let's say now that we want to find this angle. We want to find the tan of this angle. Well, now the opposite would be that and the adjacent would be this. The adjacent and opposite basically switch because adjacent is always touching this angle. But if we made this the adjacent wouldn't be touching an angle, but the adjacent has to touch the angle. The opposite doesn't touch the angle. That's why this is going to be the opposite. This is going to be the adjacent. Remember, tan can also be called tangent. So let's try this one. So again, we're going to go for tan of C. So tan is equal to what? Adjacent over opposite. Let's make sure our formulas are correct. So yes, no, it's opposite over adjacent. So we actually got our formula wrong in this one. So it's is equal to opposite over adjacent, O over A. And let's see, our opposite's going to be 3 and our adjacent's going to be 4. So 3 over 4 or 0.75. 0.75 is going to equal to tan C. Okay, let's see if we're correct. Okay, here it comes. And yes, 3 over 4, which is equal to 0.75, we were correct. So let's try a couple of practice questions now. Find the missing value of tan of C. Clue, cos is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, to find tan, our formula is going to be opposite O by adjacent A. But we need the adjacent, but here they don't say anything about the adjacent. But they do give us a clue saying that adjacent by hypotenuse is equal to 12 over 13. So A by H is equal to 12 over 13, equal to 12 over 13. Now, if we look at our hypotenuse right here, they say that it's 13. So if you haven't changed the denominator, then you won't change the numerator. So A is going to equal to 12, okay? A equals to 12. Now, we just do what we did before. We just find tan. So it's opposite over adjacent. Opposite is going to be 5, and our adjacent is going to be 12. I'm not going to simplify that into a decimal, so let's just write our answer right here, 5 over 12. Let's remember that, okay? Our answer is 5 over 12. So let's see. Well, I guess we were correct. So tan is equal to opposite over adjacent. And we need to know what the value of the adjacent is. But the clue tells us that cos is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which means 12 over 13. So that means that the adjacent is 12 because the hypotenuse was 13 in this triangle. Now we use the tan formula. Opposite by adjacent is equal to 5 over 12 or 0.416, continuous. Let's try another question. Cos of C. Now this is going to be pretty easy if we know the formula for cos. Now, let's see. We have and ca. Now we just did tan, so we should remember that formula is toe. So these are our 3 things that we use to remember them. And right now we're on cos. So it's adjacent by hypotenuse. So cos is equal to A by H. So what's our A here? Well, they say it's 12 and it's 13, and the hypotenuse is going to be 13. So our answer is going to be 12 over 13. Now this question was pretty easy if you ask me. But if you're not getting these questions correct, don't worry because this takes practice, okay? Practice makes perfect. So yeah, simply cos is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, and the adjacent is equal to 12 while the hypotenuse is 13. So adjacent by hypotenuse would be 12 over 13 or 0.923. All right, find the missing value sine. Again, we have so. And we're actually looking for sine, so we can just stop there. So, which means sine is equal to opposite by hypotenuse. So, O by H. And our opposite is equal to 8. And our adjacent is 15. And our hypotenuse is 17. But obviously, we need our hypotenuse. That's going to be the longest side of the triangle. So it's going to be 8 over 17. I'm not going to simplify that into a decimal, so I'm just going to leave my answer 8 over 17. So yes, they got exactly what we got. Sine is equal to opposite by hypotenuse, like I said, so this is going to be S So, and the opposite is 8 and hypotenuse is 17. So opposite over hypotenuse would equal to 8 over 17, or 0.4705. Now, we only found out sine, cos, and tan, but did you know that we could also find a missing side length when given two angles? That's actually right. We can know a missing side length when we are given one angle apart from the right angle. So if they give us a triangle, pretend that's our triangle, and they give us this angle, and they say it's 90, it's going to be 90 because it's a right angle. And they again give us this angle saying it's 30, then we can find side lengths from that. And by the way, this only works on right angle triangles, okay? So before you go jumping and doing on this on every single triangle you see, make sure it's the right one because these only work on right angle triangles. So the sides. So again, let's just go over the sides, just a brief quick review. So if this is going to be the angle that we're going to be finding, then this would be the adjacent because like I said, the adjacent always touches the angle in some way. The longest side is always going to be the hypotenuse. That's the easiest one to know. Longest side is hypotenuse. And the opposite doesn't even touch the angle in any way. So yeah, there it is. Moving right along, here's Socato again. We are actually going to use these again to find the missing side length. So just take a look at them, refresh your brain. So is equal to sine, which is equal to opposite by hypotenuse. Ca means that cos is equal to adjacent by hypotenuse. To means that tan is equal to opposite by adjacent. Okay, this is a question that we're going to be trying, and we're going to be able to find D. So before we go on and do this question together, make sure to give it a try by yourself. I'll give you some time right here, but if you guys need more time, feel free to pause the video. Alright, let's do this question together. So let's see. This is going to be our adjacent. This is going to be our opposite. So let's just write it. Hyp, or hypotenuse. This is going to be our adjacent, and this is our opposite. So let's see. We're going to have to find D. So what formula uses the opposite and the hypotenuse? Well, as far as I can remember, I think so does. Yeah, that's right, so does. So because it means that sine is equal to opposite by hypotenuse. So O by H. Okay, so they said an angle, they gave us an angle of 39 degrees. So let's say that's sine 39. So I'm just going to write sine, parentheses, 39 is equal to, we don't know the opposite, but we say it's D. They say it's D, so let's just use D. D by 30. Now, using a calculator, you guys have to find what sine 39 is. So get out your calculators if you have one. If you don't, then we'll just go looking it up in Google. But using calculators, sine 39 would equal to 0.629. And I'm just going to stop there, or actually let's add the 3 in there. And that's equal to D over 30. Okay. Now, if you guys remember the basic algebra rules, we have to bring the 30 over here, which means we do the opposite formula, which means we multiply both sides by 30. Sorry, that looks like a plus sign. I should probably change that. But yeah, we multiply both sides by 30, and let's see what that gives us. Times 30 and times 30. So, times 30, this equals to 18.879 is equal to D. Okay. Well, we're just going to round it because, well, rounding is the best thing to do. So it's a 9 and it's a 7, which makes it an 8. So rounded, our answer is 18.88. That is the value of our opposite, or D. So we got 18.88. Let's see if we were correct. Oops, sorry. So yes, we were correct. We know that the hypotenuse, and we need to find the opposite. So sine is equal to opposite by hypotenuse. So sine 39 is equal to d over 30. So we're going to use a calculator to solve for sine 39. So sine 39 is equal to 0.6293. And 0.6293 is going to equal to d over 30. So 0.6293 times 30 would equal to d, and that is 18.88. So yes, we did get the answer correct. Steps to take. Find the names of the sides. If they give you a triangle, find which one's your opposite, find which one's your hypotenuse, and find which one's your adjacent. That way, this will help you really. And then use Socato to memorize your formulas. Write down the formula and solve using your calculator and your algebra skills. So let's take a look at a few more, but make sure to try them out by yourself before we do them together. So this is a question, and we'll be trying to find h. Try to solve this on your own before we go on. Remember, if you need more time, make sure to pause the video. Okay, let's do this. So let's just first mention what's our hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. Well, we know the longest side is always going to be our hypotenuse. And now remember, this wouldn't be our adjacent this time because we're doing an angle that's all the way up here. So our h would be our adjacent, and this would be our opposite. So what formula uses the adjacent and hypotenuse? Well, we have to use cos. Yeah, we have to use cos because cos is equal to ca, which is C-A-H. So Socato. We got to use ca or cos. So it's going to be C or cos is equal to A over H. Now they give us an angle of 60 degrees. So C of 60 is equal to, well, let's see. We don't know our adjacent, but they say it's H, so let's just use H over 1,000. Well, again, we got to use our calculators. We got to say what's cos of 60. Well, cos of 60 is actually 0.5, so that's a good number to work with, unlike last time where we had a bunch of digits. So 0.5 is equal to h by 1,000. Now, like I said before, we have to multiply both sides by 1,000 to get rid of our denominator. So let's multiply both sides by 1,000. Okay, here it is. Okay, so 0.5 times 1,000 is equal to 500. So 500 is equal to h. Now remember, don't get confused. H isn't hypotenuse, h is a, because we are solving for a lowercase h, not an uppercase h. So our adjacent would be 500. Okay, let's see if our answer is correct from this. Yes. So the top two angles at the top is h, right? That's going to be our h, okay? The angles are at the top. H would be the adjacent. And the longest side is always going to be hypotenuse. So two sides we are using in this is adjacent, or h, and the hypotenuse, which is 1,000. So Socato tells us that we need to use cosine, or cos. So let's put our values in the equation. Cos 60 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Cos 60 is equal to h by 1,000. H by 1,000 is equal to cos 60. Cos 60 is 0.5, so h by 1,000 is going to be 0.5, or h is going to equal to 500. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and please stay tuned to my channel and subscribe for more educational videos and dance. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Bye, guys. That's it for today.